I've been rewatching Two and a Half Men for about a year now. It was about 10 years before that I used to binge watch the show. And there are certain episodes that I don't really remember very well. And there are some that I could remember from start to finish, pretty much. And that's the case with I Merely Slept with the Commie. This is the 17th episode of the 4th season of Two and a Half Men. This is directed by Halvorson, and this is an absolutely fantastic episode. There will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. My only complaint, and it's not really a complaint because I still enjoyed the whole episode, but I just thought the ending was a little bit flat. I didn't mind the final scene, but I feel like we needed one more scene in between, well, that scene and the previous scene. But I'll talk about that more when we get there. It starts off with a knock at the door, and it's Evelyn looking like she's dressed as the Grim Reaper. She's actually dressed from a funeral, and hardly anybody turned up, hardly anybody was crying, and she asked Charlie and Alan, or I guess made sure that Charlie and Alan would go to her funeral and would be upset, and of course they say yes, and they talk to each other about this, and they both realise that the same thing's probably going to happen to Evelyn. Nobody's going to turn up, nobody's going to be upset, and they realise that for her sake, they need to say something. And I think that's an interesting thought. Is it the right thing to tell her this? Would you want to know if people thought nobody would go to your funeral? I really don't know, but they tell her, referring to her as a crazy she-bat at one point, which probably wasn't the best way to take it, but Evelyn just calmly took the information and left. And to rub salt into the wound, Charlie and Alan then forget it's Evelyn's birthday. And they only find out because Jake had a card for her. And they go shopping with Jake. Really loved the scene when they were shopping. I thought they had great interaction with the sales assistant. Jake was great fun there. Really solid scene. Really well written. Really enjoyed it. They then take this crystal bowl over to Evelyn's. And it turns out she already has company. And their expressions, particularly Alan's face, when they walk in and they see three strangers. Roger, played by Wilderson. Philip, played by Tony Tripoli, and Changpu, played by Austin Lee. Evelyn found a new family. And I have to say, they're an absolute delight. And they're probably the main reason why I remembered this episode so well, because I just love the characters. And they're very different to Charlie and Alan. They're showing Evelyn a lot of love and affection. Changpu plays the cello. He's a very different kid to Jake. And the contrasts are really fun to see. And neither Alan nor Charlie are particularly happy with this, but they don't tell each other. And Charlie phones Evelyn sometime later to apologise for the things they said and all of the, not necessarily mean things, but the harsh truths that they delivered. And Evelyn seems fine with it. And unbeknownst to Charlie, Alan is actually at Evelyn's house apologising, making her food. And he's basically ushered out of the door because Roger and Philip are coming over, and he sees a photo of them on the way out. And it gives him an idea. And we're coming towards the end of the episode now. Not a lot has happened. But at the same time, I feel like just every scene hits the nail on the head. It's an absolute joy to watch. And in the final few scenes, Charlie comes down the stairs with Alan and Jake dressed rather smartly. There is a photographer there who has come to take their family portrait with Evelyn, just Alan, Jake, and Evelyn. Of course, Alan couldn't tell Charlie about this because then he'd have to confess he went behind Charlie's back and apologised to Evelyn. He's not aware that Charlie phoned her. And Charlie decides quickly he wants to be part of this. And I thought it was quite interesting here because he says that he'll do the photo because it's not fair to let Alan do it alone. And I think Charlie really wanted to be in that family photo as much as he's got a lot of negative things to say about Evelyn and about Charlie. No, he is Charlie, and about Alan. I feel like he actually, he does love them. And I think he actually would want to be part of that photo, and using it as an excuse that he didn't want Alan to do it alone was, well, it was just that, an excuse. Then Evelyn arrives, and I think she took this too far. Because I do think, and this is my interpretation, but I do believe that she hired or borrowed Roger, Philip, and Changpu to get back at Charlie and Alan. I think she knew that they would turn up sooner rather than later, if not on her birthday, at least sometime after when they realised they'd missed it. And I think she knew what it would do to them. And I think she took it too far when she turned up with Roger, Philip, and Changpu for the family portrait, because they're not really family. And certainly not when Alan's paying for a photographer kind of family. So I think she took it a bit too far. And that's kind of how we end things. And then the final scene is Changpu playing Smoke on the Water on the cello, and then Jake joining in with the guitar. And I really liked it. It was a really solid final scene. It was really good fun. But I feel like we needed just something in between Evelyn turning up with Roger, Philip, and Changpu for the photographs, and then that final scene. And I don't necessarily know what I'd want to see. Maybe a conversation between Evelyn, Alan, and Charlie. I don't know. I just feel like something was missing. I feel like we needed just a little something there. Where could we take the time from? Honestly, that being said, I'm not sure. Maybe the car ride. We're in the car for a bit, and I didn't mind those scenes, but they weren't the most amazing or anything. So we definitely could have got the time from elsewhere in the episode. But that being said, I think it's brilliant. I think I Merely Slept with a Commie is a fantastic episode. It does not surprise me that I remembered pretty much the bulk of this episode in its entirety, despite the fact that it was probably, what year is it? Probably about 12 or 13 years since I last saw this one, I think. So definitely stuck in my mind, and I'm sure I'll watch it again at some point. Ultimately, although not quite perfect, it is a pretty fantastic episode of 2.5 Men.